Hi students! In this lesson we're going to cover how to sketch your newsworthy storyboard. So I'm just going to go over how to get started, a basic process for how we put this sketch together. The first thing you want to do is choose an article that you're really excited about. Second is you want to pull 4 to 6 quotes or statements that best summarize your article. And in the storyboard that we have here, I just put those statements across the top of each one of these frames. So you want to do that same process. You want to know exactly what you're going to design in the frame. So again, put your content across the top. A really important step is next to identify a key word from each one of those statements. So for example, here I have 500 FEMA, hospitals, patients, sick and plain and abandoned. This allows me to start to identify how I'm going to lay out my typography for each one of these frames. By identifying a key word, it allows me to put emphasis on that key word when I start to design. So when I start to sketch, want to make sure that you think about this from a typographic standpoint when you start the layout. The type will be key to this project. Our spot illustration will just support our overall layout and our overall concept for motion. So again, type will be key, and you want to make sure that you're focusing on that first. So there's a few things you need to know when you're laying out your type. Just some real basic terminology of how to approach this. First and foremost is using justified type. That means that it left aligns and also right aligns. So everything appears to be in a block. On the second frame here, using left justified, where it's left and then it has a right rag. And that's more of an organic way our type wraps. So again, left justified is an option for this project, or justifying the type is an option. Usually you don't combine both, but we just wanted to show you an example of left and also justified type. When you start to lay this out, the keyword again is crucial. We're going to be working with 2 of the 4 typographic contrasts when we start to lay this out. And the typographic contrasts are just basic building blocks of how to work with type. And they're really simple to understand. The 2 that we use consistently in this sketch is size. So the type changes in size, which helps create a good typographic hierarchy and layout. And it also varies in weight, going from something that's very thin to something that's very bold. Again, this helps provide emphasis on keywords that we want our audience to see. So for example, in the first frame here, I'm using 500 in bold and FEMA actually in a medium weight of a typeface. This helps create emphasis by using size and weight. Same thing with thousands. It's the largest on the frame and then also weighs the most. It's using like an extra bold. Same with 3.4 million, 21 hospitals, 150 patients, sick, plain, and abandoned. It's always that same combination. If you want the viewer to see your clear emphasis on a specific word, use size and weight. Now weight can be a few different things. Just to kind of give everybody an example here. When I am sketching the type, universe is a really great example of a typeface with a lot of diversity. So it goes from condensed, thin, to regular, to extended, bold. So it has a lot of variety to that. And when we're sketching our idea, it's really good to actually have some printouts of the type so you can reference the weights and the sizes and get a good idea of what you're working with. And here's a little tip when you're actually drawing your frames. I would use a ruler, and you can start to guess how tall and how large you want the type, and you can actually get a sense of scale just by using a ruler, drawing the line through each one of the words that you're working with and sketching that size into that. So again, it's really, really crucial to use a ruler when you're sketching them. So once you have all your type layouts in place, you can start to think about how you would like to work with a vector, what we'll call a spot vector icon. So the layouts that we're doing for the frames are not full-blown illustrations. We're using, again, a spot vector. It means one little icon or multiple that make up and support the meaning of the frame or the keywords in the frame. So the resource that we're going to use for these spot vector icons is called the Noun Project. And this is a fantastic resource for all different types of vector icons. So when you start to have ideas, you can just simply search and I have a Puerto Rican flag and have all these options, so I can kind of sketch what I think my icon should look like off of that. Now you're more than free to sketch and kind of modify. A lot of times you will have to modify what you're working with, and we'll go over how to do that in our next demo in Illustrator. But just to have an idea, we're going to be using, again, spot vector icons when we start to do our layouts. And if you look here, I have the flag, I have a bunch of working men, I have in this frame power lines and water drops, patients that are kind of being evacuated through the frame, and then lastly a bunch of little sketches of hospitals. So again, in summary, start to lay out the type first. Think about it being justified or left justified, and also using 2 of the 4 typographic contrasts, which are size and weight. And there's one last thing I want to point out, I almost forgot, is when you're laying this type out, you'll want to work with all caps. And there's a really you really have to work with all caps because it allows us to have a baseline and what they call cap height that's equal. When we draw in caps, everything hits this cap height and everything is equal here. And what it allows us to do is actually block in the text. So to give you an example of the 500 FEMA personnel, if I was to lay it out in lowercase, I would get something like this. And you can see that when I have what they call an ascender, which is above the X height, and you'll get all this terminology in more in depth in your type classes in the future, but you do need to kind of understand this right now, is when it goes above, the ascender goes above, what we get is this kind of weird negative space that happens in between, and it happens quite a lot. So again, I have an ascender with the L here, and that's going to continually happen, and I have a descender with the P, which will interrupt the next space that I have. So again, if I have all caps, it creates type that looks unified and more in a block. So this is crucial, and I almost forgot it, that you need to have your type set in all caps. It's just going to be a lot easier for you to get a nicer looking piece of type. And last but not least, after you have all these wonderful sketches for your frames in place, don't forget to write down all your ideas of how animation and sound can be used. So again, you see all these notes where I'm using arrows and documenting how I may want to animate the type in, how I might have the little workers' heads be bobbing along like they're marching. You know, I want to almost have the electricity lines animate out and maybe electrify a little bit. So just want to go through and make sure you're noting all your motion and ideas for transitions in your storyboard as well. So I hope this demo helped everybody out in getting ready to sketch their newsworthy projects. I wish you all the best and good luck.